Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. Today's video is actually going to be an art journal entry. I actually had done a prophetic art challenge that I did as my first art journal entry for this year. And today it's not going to be so much a biblical art journal entry. It's going to be just a quote that I like, and I was inspired by some of the stamps I bought at Hobby Lobby that you'll see during the video. And so basically what I'm going to start here in my art journal is applying some clear gesso on this both pages. So I actually glued like 3 to 4 pages on each side to make the pages a little bit thicker. And so now that I've applied my clear gesso, I went ahead and applied some of these Distress stains by Tim Holtz. And the one that I'm using right now is Cracked Pistachio. And because of the gesso, the stain doesn't actually um, soak into the page because the gesso creates a slippery surface on the page. So I'm having to come in and kind of buffer a little bit, and in the places where the gesso didn't really lay too much on the page, you can see where the stain actually comes out, and that's fine. Applying gesso was like a 50-50, a good and bad. Um, Good because it allowed um, me to have, a surface where I can blend these stains and different mediums onto the page. And then the downside to it was that the stains weren't as vibrant, but which is fine because initially I was going for a bright look, and then I decided that I wanted more of a grungy look. So that's what it ended up being. So right now, what the color that I'm using is Wild Honey, one of those distress stains by Tim Holtz. And this one I didn't blend it too much. I decided I wanted to look spotty, and so I'm getting my heat tool and trying to set that so that way I can continue applying different mediums onto the page. So far I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm just going back in with a couple spritz of that cracked pistachio color, sorry. And then I just decided not to blend it and kind of work it around. And then I go back in there with my heat setting tool and set everything out. So this, I'm going to do some stamping, and this particular paper is from Tim Holtz. It's the Distress stamping paper. And at first I thought it was going to be a good idea, but the surface of this paper is actually like a slippery, um, and so it has a slick surface, so it doesn't allow the ink, at least not the VersaFine ink, to soak in, so it never really dried. So I'm applying it, I'm stamping it onto that paper, and I didn't get a very good impression on that first one. So I end up using the top page and getting a better impression on the top part. So in order to save paper, I just flipped it over and stamped it again and got a better impression here. So now I'm trying to dry it, and that's when I realized this is not going to dry. So I went ahead with it anyways, and so I grabbed my distress markers, and I'm just going to show real quickly how I colored these with the markers. And basically I'm just using some vintage looking coloring here for the suitcase, and then once I'm done coloring all of them, I'm going to go ahead and cut them well, before I cut them, I'm going to use the Gathered Twigs Distressed Ink, and then with a little cloth there, I'm going to go ahead and blend that on the edges to kind of just give it another vintage vibe. Now, as I'm doing this, because the ink never really dried, it actually removed some of it. So I had to use a little bit of my Microline pen to add details. So here I'm just adding more shading and giving more that grungy feel to my background here. So I'm using a walnut distress stain in the back, and then with one of those cloths I am blending it out. And then I'm using Gathered Twigs to do some blending as well on the edges of my journal. So I had to just go back in, and then finally I decided I wanted it a little bit darker, and I wasn't getting anything with what I was doing. So I finally went in with some VersaFine ink, and that's the outcome I got. And then I have this stamp. It actually has the Lord's Prayer, and I just went ahead and stamped it. And then I have these three little birds, and that's what inspired my entry today. Is they're these birds by Tim Holtz, and I got them at Hobby Lobby, the block set, for about $2 a piece. And I believe this sale for the block stamps is still going on even now. So I'm pretty sure if you tried going to your local Hobby Lobby, you might see all these block stamps for sale. So anyways, I am applying some of the stain, applying a couple colors all together, and then I'm going to get the birds and stamp them on there to get some different effects on the birds there. So I tried doing a second stamp of that same bird and it just didn't work, so I just don't use that. And basically all I'm doing is spraying the stain onto the paper. It's just a plastic packaging paper, but you can, if you have acetate paper, you can use that as well, or just whatever you have at hand that's plastic, even a Ziploc bag. So basically I'm just doing the two colors. This one, the colors that I use to for the birds are Broken China, Picked Raspberry, Abandoned Coral, Mermaid Lagoon. And here I'm just adding a little bit of that Gathered Twigs Distress ink, just to make them look a little vintagey and a little dirty, because it is a grungy look. And then what I'm doing is with a black marker, I'm just coloring the paper lines. And then I'm sealing my background with some Mod Podge sealer. And because the stain doesn't have a surface, a porous surface, it's going to be moving around, but that is totally fine by me because it gave me an even more grungier look, which is what I was looking for or trying to achieve. So now I just have all my suitcases and I'm seeing how I want to position them and stacking them one on top of the other. And then once I am happy with the placement, I'm going to use that Mod Podge sealer with a dry paintbrush, and then I'm going to just seal it down to my paper. And using my heat tool to dry the glue. And then I have my Faber-Castell white Pitt pen, and I'm just trying to get some, background to where it looks like it's coming off of the page a little bit. So I go and try to fix this multiple times with different mediums. So I tried the Pitt pen, I tried the black marker, I tried the distress markers. So I'll fix that in a second. And then I just start stamping all the birds where I want them, and then I go ahead and seal down the birds where I stamped, so that way all the details are on the birds. And then I just go in there with my Signal white pen and put that all around the suitcases, and that's how I decided to leave it. Then I have this honeycomb looking block stamp, and I decided I needed a border, so I went ahead and stamped it all throughout the edges there to create a border. And now I'm using the Tim Holtz foam stamping set, and then I'm using my acrylic block to align all my letters, and then using my VersaFine ink to apply that. So what I am putting on here is not all who wander are lost. And I thought those little birds fit perfectly with the suitcases. Now, because VersaFine ink was not drying fast enough because of the thick surface that the Mod Podge gives, it gives this glossy. So every time I wanted to go in to add these white and black shading around the border, my hand would kind of, land on the words. So I would smear it a little bit. But if you get a baby wipe, just you can fix that and restamp it because it does not dry. So I would probably use archival ink next time because it seems that is more permanent than VersaFine. So now that I finished my border and everything else, so now all I'm doing is with my white Signal Uniball pen, I am adding some little highlights to my letters here just so that they kind of stand out from this background. And then I also added shading or little highlights to the birds. And that is pretty much it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching this video. It lets me know that you like to watch videos like this. I do journal art entries, Bible entries, and some challenge entries as well. So basically whatever I get inspired by and I want to share with you guys, I will be uploading and showing you guys the process. So thanks again for watching.